Next item, committee report, Water, Light, and Street, Mr. Barfield.
Yes, sir, Mayor. The Water, Light, and Street Committee did meet on January the 7th, and at this meeting, we have a couple agenda items here to be approved of the council, and I'll make the first motion to approve the purchase of a 500 kVA transformer for inventory for Brownstown in the amount of $9,753, which is the lowest quote at 5 quotes.
Second. Motion made by Mr. Barfield, second by Mr. Carroll. Discussion. Call the roll, please.
Barfield.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Corzine.
Yes.
Daughtry.
Yes.
McManus.
Yes.
Midnight.
Yes.
And Mizell.
Yes.
Next item, a motion is required to suspend the rules and place an ordinance amending the Code of Metropolis, Section 50.25, rates for electrical energy upon its passage.
Motion made by Mr. Barfield.
Did you make a motion to suspend the rules?
Suspend the rules, yes.
Okay. I'll second that.
I think this is gonna call for some discussion.
We do have a motion, we do have a second. Discussion.
I for one agree with part of this ordinance, although I don't agree with some of it. And the main part that I don't agree with is the rental fee on the meters, which the city of Metropolis has never had. They're wanting to take the money from this rental fee and accumulate a reserve emergency fund. To do this, we're going to ask our constituents, every one of us, to possibly dip into their reserve fund to have so Metropolis can have a reserve fund. I don't think I want to support that. That's, I know we've got to operate in the black. We may need to do something with the rate changes, but the meter fee for a surplus fund, I can't support that.
I got something too. On E and F, which we didn't discuss, we got a 3% increase every year starting July 1st, 2016. We didn't even talk about that.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I'm not too sure we did discuss that one.
No, we didn't.
Well,
When we talked about the meter fee, we kept saying $5. It would go up to $5. And what we had was $5.15. Later, it come out $2.50 up to a total of $5, with a 3% a year on July the 1st of each year commencing July the 1st, 2016. And that would be over and over and over to charge additional 3% each year. That's not much first year, but when you go over and over and over, it's gonna amount to.
Let me explain a little bit. What she talked about, what Verbal brought to you was, you already have in your thing an increase built in annually for what's called the non-energy cost, okay? You do it based off of audit. She suggested rather than go to audit, you adjust the non-energy portion of the rate. That's not the whole rate, okay? That's the non-energy portion of the rate and the meter fee by 3% a year is what she was suggesting, okay? If you actually have F right now, but you do the adjustment based on the audit rather than it being a fixed amount each year, okay? She put the 3% in those, oh goodness, I want to say, and it's in here, I believe, in here, this sheet she handed out to you, she put the 3% in on, what's that?
she got it in 2015.
Well, that's because when she presented it, we looked at doing $5
Right,
all
yeah.
the time.
That's
Okay?
right.
I backed that out when you decided, afterwards, when you all had talked amongst yourselves a little bit, and all, we backed the meter fee down to $250 the first year and $250 the second. I backed that out, that 3%, and didn't start it, because it was gonna be real confusing in the numbers.
Yeah.
I just backed it out until July of 16 for that reason, just so it would be simple. Because it was gonna get real confusing at that point. Now, let me explain one thing. In order to get back to even, if you want to call it that, the $5 is needed in order to get back to even, okay? It's not to build a reserve just on the meters, it's to get you back to even. Now, you can take it off, but you're gonna need to build it somewhere into that rate structure over that period of time. What has happened is, basically, when you reduced the rates in 2012, okay, you did so because you had reserves. Now, in the past, you would have been subsidizing using gaming revenue. Up until 2006, you subsidized using gaming revenue for many, many years. What you've done the last couple of years is you've subsidized using your own electric reserves. Everybody's gotten a subsidy based on the electric reserves. Now, and we just simply can't keep going there. The sheet that we showed you back in May that looked a little like this showed 50 different electric suppliers. These are municipals, these are Ameren CIPS, this is the co-ops, this is the Exelon, ComEd, this is some municipals that aren't even in the IMEA, okay, all around Illinois. And if you look, this was for 2013. Metropolis was at the very bottom, the lowest. It was somewhere a little over 8 cents per kilowatt. It's still at 8 cents a kilowatt, okay? Now, the second sheet that we looked at, we're still down here. And by the way, if anybody wants these, I hand these out to the committee, but I'll give them to you again tonight. We've got these tonight. If you look, everybody that was down here that was even close to us, by 2015, was bumping up here at or above 12 cents a kilowatt hour, okay? So everybody that's down here was already had plans to head this direction, all right, that was coming up. In 2016, they'll be above that. So Metropolis will still be down here in the bottom part at 2016 with what's in this ordinance. Now, if you drop it below that, we'll be even lower, but we won't be cash flowing, I don't think. We're not cash flowing right now. We're still eating reserves, and we're at the point where we just don't have any reserves left to eat. And it takes a while to turn this thing around. I mean, we don't just make it back over the next 1 month time. We're projecting that even to get back to where you have some reserves is going to be spread out over about 5 years with this rate structure, where you get to where you're going to have some decent reserves, where you can handle an ice storm, where you can handle a breakdown, let's say tornado or something. It's going to take at least 5 years before you get back there. As it is right now, we won't make it to the end of the fiscal year just on operations, because we have allowed it to subsidize about as long as it can go. That's just it.
Well, I've got a question. Where was all this information when we were looking at budgets? I mean, you're talking 3 weeks from now, we're gonna be giving the people a pay increase. Why didn't we discuss this months ago when we were talking budget stuff, and this was brought to our attention then? Now, we're asking for, in 13 months, to put a 36% increase on the people, on their electric bills.
Well, why it wasn't discussed then, one, you just commissioned a rate study in June and it wasn't done yet, okay? We
But
didn't
the
have it.
funds are running out of money, and we can't see that on a spreadsheet?
Oh, it was shown on a spreadsheet. It was shown that the funds were running out. That's why we started the rate study. We've been talking about this since last spring, actually. We started talking about this in March and April of last year. Now, at first, we didn't think it would take as much to tweak it, but then we didn't have a rate study to prove exactly what it would take. But we brought it up in March and April of last year at city council meetings and in committees that they were gonna all have to be tweaked. We'd hope we could spread it over 3 years rather than a 2-year cycle, but it's not.
And I don't think we've had a rate study since
we're-
2006.
Actually, the numbers for the 2006 rate study, 2005 rate, so you're right, were from 2004. So that's how long it's been since we had a rate study.
Mr. Axon stood right there at that podium 2 years ago and asked us to do a rate study, and we didn't have no interest in it. Now, all of a sudden, we have an interest in it.
Well, we had an interest last spring in it, but it didn't get done until this fall. We just got the results. We just looked at the results in December. I mean, right before the holiday. So, I mean, it hadn't like we've been sitting there on anything.
There's been a lot of discussion on these rates, let's just go back to, for a minute, to 2009, when we had the ash storm. It cost the city 1.7 million. Only 1.2 million of that was reimbursed to the city. Go back to May the 21st, 2010. The electric system shows about 700,000 in net profits so far, and should finish the fiscal year ending June the 30th at about 1 million ahead of expenses. Then the proposed rebate that we give costs the system about 445,000, leaving more than half of the profits in reserve for emergency repairs and replacements and toward possible upgrades. Well, that profit got away from us. It went somewhere. I don't know exactly where it went, but we spent it. But we discussed this back through the years.
We spent a lot of it on the upgrade for the,
Yes.
going from the 4 kV to the 12 kV. Yes, we didn't
And
borrow
I
any
asked
money.
that question sitting right here in this chair about that reserve, and I was told it wasn't gonna bother that one bit.
And it didn't bother that one bit. We had that paid for.
Now, you just sat here and told us that's where the money went.
Well, he's saying what profits when we had 600,000 or so. We spent that. We still had a reserve. We had a sizable reserve in 2012, okay? But people were hurting. They said we need some relief. Water and sewer kept climbing, okay? So we felt like we could cut back and eat some of the reserve. Normally what you do, you would cut, everybody was complaining about the PPA. Normally what you do is you take the PPA and you roll it into the base. That's what most towns do. We didn't roll it into the base. We adjusted the PPA so it wouldn't have to move anymore. And it's where it needs to be, and it's, with rates being gonna be relatively flat. Energy rates, energy costs, wholesale energy can be fairly flat. We feel like we can keep the PPA where it's at. What we're saying is, over that 2 years though, you took what reserve was left and you ate it by subsidizing. You basically gave it back to the customers over that 2 years.
Then we budgeted about $250,000 to $300,000 annually for upgrades and stuff for our conversion. On our money, I mean, we didn't borrow money to do it. We did
Mr. Abel mentioned 2012 there. On November the 6th, 2012, with completion of the city's nearly 3 million 12 kilovolt conversion project that upgraded the local power grid to a much more reliable system, the city can focus on rate relief. But we haven't had much rate relief.
Well, we dropped it almost 3 cents.
Yeah.
We dropped it almost 3 cents, and what we're doing now is taking it back up almost 3 cents, basically 3 cents.
Over
I mean, that's
2
what,
years.
over 2 years. We dropped it at that time about 3 cents a kilowatt, is where we were at.
3 cents, you're saying?
That's about what it was, a little less than 3, Bill, I wanna call it
A little less.
2.8 cents, 2.9,
2.89.
somewhere in there. That's about what we dropped it.
To be honest with you, gentlemen, I mean, what it amounts to is none of us had the backbone to vote a rate increase every year. Instead, we simply didn't, and we kept eating up our reserve. And I mean, I voted for it too. I mean, who wants to vote every year to increase your electricity? But that's what you have to do, because it goes up every year. And we chose to use our reserves and not pass that on to our customers. And I voted for it, we all voted for it, thought it was a great idea. Okay, but now those reserves are gone, so we are going to have to do a rate increase of some sort. I mean, it's just there, 6 years without a rate increase, and we know what's going on in Paducah. We know what's going on in Ameren. I have a friend who's on REA, and he told me he got a letter that they're getting a rate increase. I mean, every year, everybody got a rate increase except Metropolis. I mean, I don't want to vote for a rate increase, and I haven't for 6 years, you know, and that's where we messed up. If we have a problem swallowing this now, we need to go back and re-vote every year for the last 6 years and pass on a small raise every year. But we chose not to do that. Now, gentlemen, I mean, you voted one way, and now nobody wants to own up to it. I'm sorry, that's wrong. We voted not to pass on the increase. Now, let's not get nasty about this. That was our choice. We chose not to do it. And now we're faced with this issue, and we all want to scream bloody murder. That's our fault. I mean, if we'd have voted this in every year, a 3% or a 2% raise, we would be fine right now. But we chose not to do it to give a relief to our citizens. Okay, let's own up to that. Now, in response to Mr. Carroll here, you know, maybe, okay, maybe we don't wanna put a meter charge on it, we are gonna have to raise the rates higher though, to make up for it. I mean, we can say we're not gonna pass this on, but the first time we get a bill for electricity from IMEA and we can't pay it, what are we gonna do? I mean, you know, so.
Well, you can look at ordinance 5446, which is rates, B section. The foregoing rates are based upon the normal net cost of electric power to the municipal electric utility and shall be increased or decreased based upon the increase or decreased cost to the municipal electric. That's exactly what you're saying. That's what I agree to.
Yeah, we had the opportunity to raise these rates. And we chose not to do it. I mean, it was our decision. It wasn't Mr. Abel's decision.
No.
He doesn't vote. The mayor doesn't vote. There was 8 of us sitting here, and we voted not
correct.
to raise these rates.
And I do
And I'm
believe,
sorry.
I believe at the time
You
that
know, and
that
that,
decision was made, I believe it was the right decision.
It was
To
the right
relieve
decision because it was
with
bad
the
economic
situation.
times.
Yes, it was.
Okay, it was the right
And,
decision.
I mean,
and it's still not good economic times,
No,
but
it
now
isn't.
we backed
It's
ourselves
bad.
into a corner.
I agree with some of the things Mr. Abel was saying, and yourself. But, we have to look at some of the things that are going on now. Look at Honeywell. Look at the families that are out of jobs right now. I know that's only a percentage of our town, but it's a decision. It's a decision. I don't want to see this town get into hardship on any disaster, and we have to come up with something. It's a lot to think about.
I mean, we've always said we wanted a reserve. And now we've used up our reserves, and if we try to get another reserve back, okay, maybe we want to change our mind. Maybe we don't want a reserve. Well, but that's a decision that we have to consciously sit here and make. We don't want it to slip by
No.
and somebody come back in later and say, did you know this? Like, gee whiz, I didn't know it. We do know these things.
But this is the same exact situation we went through over the sewer separation. This council sat right here year after year after year after year and made these same types of decisions.
Yeah.
They wasn't, as my quote was, belly up to the bar and do it. Well, now we're sitting here, we've had to belly up to the bar
Yeah.
and make the sewer right. None of us liked it, none of us wanted it. But now we're forcing more of this down the people's throat. You can take your electric bill right now and multiply it times 1.36, and now you know how much your electric's gonna be this time next year. 13 months from now, we're gonna be putting a 36.07%, or pardon me, 36.033% increase on the peoples of Metropolis. We've gotta stop somewhere. You know, maybe we need to stop doing every project that comes down the pipe. Maybe we need to start reserving some of the monies. I mean, we're building almost $750,000 pool house down here. We're throwing money here and throwing money there. Maybe we need to start tightening our belts around this table a little bit more, and we're asking the people in Metropolis to do it, but we're not.
We need to look at how we can save money also. That's just like at one time, Mr. Abel, I think you figured it up. I counted the lights at the basketball court, the tennis court, and whatever, I think there's 58 lights, and what you figured was over $200,000 it was costing us a year. And I'm wanting to say over $250,000. But if we cut them lights off half of that time, instead of letting them burn day and night,
Absolutely.
put that money in reserve.
Well, okay.
You got 7,500 street lights, but every week somebody calls me wanting new street lights put in.
It's actually
We're paying for all them.
the street lights and the, park lights. I mean, I did throw the park lights, everything is in there. When I was talking about what you might look at saving, we're talking about the street lights as well. Most towns our size have 1,400 to 1,800 street lights, okay? We have 7,500. Now, but you wanna be, I mean, there's being popular one way and being popular another. I mean, we start cutting the street lights off,
See what
so we hear about
happens,
that.
yeah.
Because these are the lights that
You
are
get phone calls.
light up the alleys and people's backyards and front yards and things like that. We have But to be frank, our non-billed consumption is not totally huge compared to our, I mean, it's not out of line. We need to look to, by comparison, we can expect should not be more than 8% of our total consumption is non-billed, okay? Meaning for our own use, like our city hall, for example, and stuff like that, and public works and all that. And we that and our lights in our parks and our lights on the streets should not exceed 8%. We've looked at it the last 2 years. 2 years ago, it was less than 6%. This year, it was a little over 6%. So we're not out of line with standards. When we talk about the cost, our system operates, our electric system operates on about, out of every dollar that's paid in, only about 19% goes into operations, capital, and everything else. The rest is your energy cost, okay? Most systems, it's a 30-70 split between energy and their and your operations cost. So we're operating on the cheap side already as it is. I don't know what else we've cut, but we're only at 19%, okay? When you talk about making cuts elsewhere, yes, we can stop some projects. But then you're gonna have, what you're talking about is rating general fund. Gotta keep in mind, folks, it's fund accounting and it's fund legal in city government, okay? You don't have the opportunity to just simply put money anywhere you want, anytime you want. General fund you can move, but right now, general fund is the fund that's been struggling. We've been feeding general in the past from electric, from water, from sewer, okay? Because gaming's not there. And that's what most towns do. Most towns have to feed general from the utility funds, not the other way around. If we were to cutting the pool bathhouse, all that would have done is said, well, okay, let's take $300,000 from general and feed electric with it. But that would make that be a one-time deal you could do, and it goes away after that. It's a one-time deal. So you got to be careful. I know it's not pleasant. But believe me, it's not pleasant in Paducah right now. Where we're at 8.6, they're at 14.6 on the residential side. In a year and a half, we'll be at 12. They're going to be God knows where. We're going to be back to about where we were a couple of years ago. That's where we're going to be. Okay, that's about where we're going to be. We're going to be back to about where we were a couple of years ago.
What I was trying to say about the lights at the tennis court and the ballparks, if we could educate our coaches or whoever's in
Exactly.
charge of turning them lights on, how to turn them off. And I could put the sign on there, use only when needed. You go out there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and actually it's 12 o'clock sometime, all them lights are on. If you remember not too long ago, we had a lady up here with a $600 light bill. I went to her house, and she had two 1,500-watt heaters that was going all the time. And she couldn't understand why her light bill was so high. Up here at the ballpark, you've got 58 lights that are 1,500 watts.
Yep.
How much money you're going to save?
You will save. You will save. If we start doing some
Put it in
conservation-
reserve.
Just put it on you may have to lock it up, keep them, turn them on, but that can be done too. But Mr. Carroll brought up the subject of the ice storm in 11, that we only got reimbursed 75% for. That doesn't account for the ice storm we had in 2009, and we spent $1 million and didn't get one dime of it back.
That's right.
So, I mean, it's, you either want lights or you, and I've sat right where each one of you all are sitting, and I know it's not popular. But I think Stoney and them with 4 men are doing a great job.
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
if we don't do some of these small $200,000 to $150,000 projects, keep our inventory up and things like that, it won't be but just a couple of years, and we'll be replacing something again at $500,000 instead of the $150,000. So you have to keep your system maintained, or we'll end up with the same situation that we were with the sewer separation. You know, I know it's not popular, and I know just exactly what you're talking about, where you're sitting. I commend you on what you do and stuff like that, but, you know, sometimes it's not real good.
I think we all know the cause of why we need to do this, but what is gonna be the effect?
Yeah,
I mean,
I understand.
What's gonna be the effect?